I'm Blake, and this is my 99 7.3 liter F350 that we bought at the end of 2018 for $1,500 and trailered home as a project truck. Now, you may be wondering, why would I go buy a project truck when we already have two trucks with the 6.7 Cummins in them and an old body style F250? Well, the long and the short of it is, I need a reliable tow rig. My F250 is a 5.8 liter gas engine, for now, and it's not quite big enough to move the things we need to move. My Ram 3500 with the 6.7, well, you need a new truck, they said. Go buy a diesel, they said. It'll tow better. It'll be more reliable. You won't have these problems. Hasn't been the most reliable vehicle I've ever owned, and Victoria's Ram 2500 is a short bed with a topper on it. It's great for doing a lot of stuff, but when it comes to moving big loads on gooseneck trailers, it's just not the right truck for the job. Not only does the 7.3 have an absolutely stellar reputation for reliability, it also just kind of holds a special place in my life because my family bought our first one used in 1996, and we would go on to put over 300,000 miles on that pickup truck, which my sister still has today. I would grow up, I would go on to own two other 7.3 Super Duties on my own, and I just fell in love with these trucks. I really like the 99 through 03 body style. I really like the updates they did to the 7.3 when they went from the OBS trucks to the Super Duty. If I could build any truck, it would be a 7.3, very much like the one we're sitting in here, because there's no emissions. There's no DEF tank to have to fill. There's no expensive emission system to have to maintain. It's just a rock-solid, reliable work truck. Now, I would want a few things. I would want a manual transmission instead of this. We have had the engine in this truck running, and we've driven it around a little bit. This factory bed is so beat up, I can actually hear it rattling as we go over bumps. Blow-by is a term for combustion gases that escape past the piston rings, and it's a sign of low compression on an engine, and on this particular engine, it's bad. But that's not surprising. This old girl's eating a lot of dirt. Let me show you. I suspect this here broken air filter box lid is the prime suspect for the amount of dirt we have on the post filter, the clean side of the air intake system, but it's built up like this. Yeah. Yeah, that's really bad. This engine needs to come out and be completely overhauled. Rebuild parts aren't all we need though. The injectors and high pressure oil pump are worn and need attention, along with the turbo, because, you know, having all that dirt blasting through it wasn't any good for the turbo either. Using quality parts, I'm easily looking at $1,500 or so for the block rebuild, the pistons, the ring, the crank, all that stuff if I do the labor myself. We're looking at about another $1,500 to take care of the injectors, injector cups, and injector seals. And then we're probably looking at about another $1,500 to take care of the high pressure oil pump, the turbo, and then we still have to have the block and head sent out to be machined and, you know, get ready to be rebuilt. All in, to rebuild this engine properly would be a little bit over $5,000. You'd end up with a very, very nice 0-mile engine when you finished, but again, this truck needs more than just that. So on our test drive, I really didn't like how this automatic transmission was shifting. Now, it could just be because the engine isn't healthy and might not have been sending the correct signals to the computer to tell it when to shift, but it could also be because this almost 300,000 mile automatic transmission is getting tired and maybe developing some problems of its own. Now, the seemingly obvious solution to any potential transmission problems here would just be to swap in that 6-speed manual transmission I would really prefer to have anyway, but that too is not as simple as it sounds. The ZF6 that Ford used in this era truck is actually larger than the automatic transmission, so the floor pan down here would actually need to be modified and pushed up from underneath in order to make enough room for that transmission to even fit. And then once we did that, I would have to replace the automatic brake and accelerator pedal here with a setup out of a standard shift truck that had the clutch pedal, brake pedal, and accelerator pedal. We would also need to replace the PCM in this truck because it would be looking for signals from an automatic transmission, and with our manual transmission not sending those signals, it wouldn't quite know what to do with itself and the truck wouldn't run properly. We would need to buy a clutch, and then we would need to replace the automatic flex plate on the back of this engine with a manual transmission flywheel. All in, using a rebuilt transmission, I would be looking at probably $3,000 just to put a manual transmission in this cab connected to that engine. The automatic and manual shift transfer cases Ford used in these trucks are a little bit different. They have a different input shaft. So at the very least, I would need to pull this transfer case out, replace the input shaft, replace all the seals, and put it back in. But again, we're dealing with a truck that has almost 300,000 miles on it. So if we're doing a completely new 0-mile engine and a completely professionally rebuilt 0-mile transmission, it really just makes the most sense to me to go ahead and put in a new, rebuilt, remanufactured 0-mile transfer case also. Now that we've rebuilt our engine and replaced our transmission and replaced our transfer case for about another $1,000, we're still not done yet building this into the type of truck that I need it to be, because this particular F-350 behind me, like so many that were sold, came with 373 gears in the rear axle. Now, 373s are not bad at all for in-town driving. They're not bad at all for highway cruising if you're unloaded. But for a truck that's going to be doing the type of work I need to do, they're too tall. They don't have enough low-end torque. So I would need to swap those out, or even swap complete axle assemblies for something that came with either 410 or 430 gears in it. Now, I've looked for some complete axle assemblies out of a wrecked truck. I haven't seen a whole lot, but that could be said for all of the parts I'm looking for too. Good condition used parts aren't that easy to find. But either way, assuming we had to go ahead and swap the gears in the axles that are currently under that truck, we'd be looking at probably another $1,000 to do that as well, and we're still not done. So while the cab on this truck isn't in bad shape, especially considering that it's a 20-year-old ranch truck, the bed, yeah, this bed has seen better days. But that's okay, because I don't like pickup beds anyway. For the type of work I'm doing, pickup beds are not nearly as functional as something like a bale bed would be, or one of those service deck type flat beds. I could get a lot of use out of one of those. The downside to both of those beds is the weight. Now, if you take a truck like this that has approximately 3,000 pounds of cargo capacity, and you spend 1,000 pounds of that capacity on your bed that never goes away, you just lost 1,000 pounds of payload capacity. Now you can only haul 2,000 pounds of cargo because you spent 1,000 pounds of your payload packing around that bed. In order to help offset that type of situation, the suspension on this truck would need to be upgraded either with different leaf springs or airbags, or a combination of the two. To a lot of people, investing realistically $10,000 to $12,000 on such a massive build on a 20-year-old truck with 300,000 miles might not make a lot of sense, especially when you consider for that $10,000 to $12,000, we still haven't addressed that bed back there. And the beds that I'm looking at, the ones I want, would cost between $2,000 and $3,000 if I were to build, and maybe a little more than that if I were to buy one new. A lot of people don't see a whole lot of value in putting $15,000 into a truck with over 250,000 miles on it, and I get that. However, you got to consider what you're really getting for your money. You have 0 miles on your engine, you have 0 miles on your transmission and the rest of your driveline. The cab is already in good condition, and you're going to have a really nice working flatbed back there. Essentially, functionally, even though the odometer doesn't reflect it, this would basically be a brand new F-350 for $15,000. And that's a heck of a deal. If you had time to hunt for good used parts, or maybe even try to find a complete donor vehicle that you could buy and then take what you needed out of, this project could be done for less money, but you're going to be doubling or tripling the amount of time it takes you just to do the job. Even buying all new parts that I can have delivered here in just a few days, this is still a massive undertaking of a project to rebuild a complete truck from front to back, top to bottom. And realistically, with my schedule, it would probably take me the better part of a year to complete this truck if I had all the parts show up next week. Here in the next few weeks, we're going to have to start preparing for hay season, which means I'm going to have to pull out all of our tractors, all of our equipment, everything that's been sitting since we parked it last year, go through everything, do all our basic maintenance, and get it ready to go into the field. And then as soon as the weather allows us to, we're going to have to go start putting in some pretty long hours cutting hay. Not only is that going to eat up really all the time that I would have to spend on anything else like working on a truck, but I'm also going to need a really reliable tow rig to be able to get that work done. So instead of spending $15,000 and really 6 to 8 months out of my life to build this F350 into the functional equivalent of an F550, I feel like I would be better off to let this truck go down the road to someone that has more time to invest in it, that might already have a parts truck that's been rolled or in some kind of an accident sitting around, or that might not need to make the drastic types of changes that I need to make to this truck. It would be a better use of my money and my time to let this truck go to them and then take the $15,000 I would spend on a build and go buy myself a nice 7.3 liter F550 that I can take to the field this year and, well, work with, not work on. Subscribe if you want to see that stuff. Thank you all for watching, and more later.